Hello and welcome to Okay-ish Advice. Is it the best advice? Absolutely not. But, I've lived life. I've really lived life. And, I'm here to answer your questions and to give you a little, holy and hood advice. I just wanted to give like a little trigger warning about this. Today is the 10th anniversary of my daughter's death. And it just happens to fall on this day. And so I wanted to take this episode to share my story because at the time that she passed away, it was 1 in 4 of people who had experienced infant loss. And I think they consider infant like 1 and under, right? Yeah. So, and then now it's like 1 in 3 in the last 10 years, which is insane. And I'm not going down that rabbit hole or anything like that. But, I was actually very open about her death and kind of just, that whole experience in a time where it was way more taboo. And, I had family who judged me. I had people who judged me. I even, politically people judged me. Because at that time, that state that I grew up in was passing partial birth abortion. So I shared my daughter's story and how she was murdered during birth. And, that became a thing. So I was under a lot of persecution. And I think one of the greatest things about me is that I am here to share what I've gone through. And I'm a real person. And, people love to hate me, and I just love to love them in return. And I'll get irritated, but at the end of the day, I love you and I bless you. So, in all of that saying, if this is something that you struggle with, if this is something that you don't want to listen about, it's cool, friend. But then on the other side, people have asked me, what's your story? What's happened? And so right now I'm 23 weeks pregnant with our son. And he will be about, hopefully, 2 months old-ish around that time because, again, I'm still 10 years later struggling with and dealing with the effects of medical neglect. And so, I know that this is heavy, but I hope that this makes somebody feel seen and understood. And I hope this helps you. So 10 years ago, our daughter Giada was born. And her name is Giada Lucetta Fiorenza Martinico. And the reason why I named her that was because I had a dream. And I had a dream that I was holding her in our backyard and there was just wildflowers around me. And I saw the sunrise come up and the light from the sun hit the dew on the flowers and it started sparkling all around. And she was wrapped in this white blanket. And the night before I had prayed, God, which middle name should we use? Lucetta or Fiorenza? And then when I woke up in the morning, I realized that when I put it all together, her name meant Jade, because all of our girls are named after a gemstone. Jade, the light that shines off the dew of the flowers. So it was God's confirmation to me that his presence was going to be around me. And I had gone to the doctor and I had asked for a VBAC, and that doctor flat out told me that she didn't make money that way. And, she didn't talk to me about a transfer, nothing. So Matt and I prayed about it, and I had 2 previous C-sections, And I was basically, it was the classic, your baby measures large, you need to be induced. Then, of course, you're on Pitocin for 32 hours. It ends up in a C-section because the baby's in distress. You're so freaking worn out because you didn't have drugs. You're like, please get this kid out of me because, I just wasn't educated, you guys. I was like 23, okay? And then, of course, I got pregnant with Gemma 6 weeks after. We found out we were pregnant with Gemma, which she was our huge surprise because we had struggled with infertility with Gia. So, I couldn't afford a midwife. So we kind of like struck this deal to deliver, that a midwife would come right at the end and help us. And we were going to do a, just kind of like labor and stuff, me and Matt and all that. So, I had an incredible, supernatural labor. It was amazing. I could feel my body working, but it wasn't painful. And I worshiped God, and Matt recorded me just in the birth pool, just worshiping. And it was so beautiful. And it was time to push. And the fetal ejection reflex happened. And Giada had crowned to here. And then, I tore everything, okay? Sorry, but it's real. And that's when my uterus essentially like exploded. And I kept saying, because I was in the water, I'm like, I can't push. Like, why can't I push? And I stood up to try and get out of the tub, and that's when I passed out. And then the next thing I knew, I was being wheeled on like into an ambulance. And then when we showed up at the hospital, which was right down the street, the doctor that I hated was the doctor on call. And she looked me in the eyes and she literally said, I told you you couldn't do this. And I looked at her, I said, just pull her out and throw me in the OR. Like, please. I said, she's kicking me. I know she's in distress. I'm like, she's right there, please. And they took my husband out with security because Matt was trying to advocate for me. And they brought me in the OR, and the anesthesiologist was literally chewing as he was walking in, went like this. And everything went black. And, I talked about this on another podcast about like what my husband went through and how, when they call code blue and all that happens, they don't tell you, like, is it the wife or is it the baby, And Matt, he was so distraught. He was, on the floor in the waiting room, just losing it and crying out to God to save me. And when I woke up and the doctor was there, and I said, please. I was like, please, I know that, like, I'm like, where's Giada? And she just ignored me. And I'm like, please, 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 like, where is she? Like, and I'm screaming at this doctor. And she just looked at me and she's like, your husband is coming to talk to you. And my husband came in with my friend Rachel. And I said, Matt, I was like, what happened? And he just, I've never seen such a look of like defeat on Matt's face. And he just looked at me and he said, she didn't make it. And we later found out that when the doctor went against my wishes and pulled her back up the birth canal, they broke her neck and she died. And, people say to me all the time, why didn't you sue them? Why didn't you blah, blah, blah? But I think that people say that out of anger and out of ignorance because they don't understand that when you are literally poor, you can't just go and get an attorney. And when you come from a very small town, there's like a medical mafia. And they were, they called CPS on us. There was a whole investigation. And then on top of that, I found out just December this past year that when I had 7 blood transfusions, one of those transfusions was not tested properly or whatever, and they gave me a tainted blood transfusion, which has now affected this pregnancy 10 years later. And so here I am 10 years later struggling with this. And, you don't know grief like the grief of losing a child, because that's something that never goes away. And it's been 10 years. And last year was the first year that my husband really fully processed it. And I don't know if it's because of where he is right now in his, spiritual journey, and where he is with Jesus, but watching him process that 9 years later after being so strong for me was the most heartbreakingly beautiful thing that could happen for our marriage, because it was my turn to be the strong one for him. And he had been so strong for so long. But anyways, so, we have our daughter, and her urn is actually over there. And every once in a while, I have to dust it. And on the bottom, it says, "Here lies the remains of Giada, Lucetta Fiorenza Marnico." And I lose it, And coming home, and, everybody was like, we'll go in there, we'll erase all the signs that this ever happened. But I told them no. Matt went home. He, boxed up the birthing pool. He did all that. I said, leave her clothes. I said, I want to go through her clothes. And I got to pack up this life that I thought was going to happen. And I didn't know what to do, you guys. I knew sitting in that hospital bed, surrounded in the friggin' maternity ward by all these new babies, I knew that there was this moment where it spoke so clear to my spirit, where I was like, God has to become real to me. Like, really real to me, or I'm going to lose everything. I just knew it. I knew that I had the choice to either be angry at God, be angry at this doctor, or choose to forgive for me so that God could deal with this woman, and deal with the way that she treated me and her God complex. And, I've lived 10 years asking why, and I've never gotten an answer. And all I have to do is just know that God told me that Giada was going to be my history maker. And I didn't know what that meant. I just, I call my kids little history makers because they are. And their life impacts, the world. Like the butterfly effect, right? And, but she was my history maker. And she changed my life because she gave me the gift of compassion towards grieving people, towards people in general. Just looking at people and knowing that you don't know what they go through. In reflection of the last 10 years, and this is all based on the question, I should have said this at the beginning, how do I work through fear after loss? You guys, I'm struggling with that so bad. So bad this time around. Because it's like, I just don't get it. Like this hospital killed my kid. They gave me a botched uterine repair, wasn't even to medical standard, and they gave me tainted blood. And here I am 10 years later, I'm, living day to day with Nunzio's numbers, and, you know, they're checking his brain, and, you know, and I joke about like the fact that I wish I could just be like my homestead friends who have 27 kids and pop one out and go milk a freaking cow. And that's not me. And sometimes life doesn't go the way that you want it to. And it doesn't go the way that you expect it to. But I can tell you that everything that the enemy has tried to steal from me with our daughter, God has somehow turned around to be for his glory and for his goodness, and his goodness in our family. You know, our kids, that was so hard on them. They literally hate baby dolls and hate Barbies because, you know, somebody thought they could give them a baby doll afterwards, and they were like, I don't want a baby doll, I want my sister. You know, and we've had to have these like open, real conversations with them about loss and about heaven. And, you know, they're like, well, my kids cry. God, I wish our sister was here. What would Christmas be like? What would it, you know, there's always somebody missing at our table. And sometimes I don't even know what to say to them. I just hold a place where they can cry and they can, you know, experience it. And it's so weird because you feel like because you're the parent, you should have like all these answers. I don't have answers for myself, except for that, you know, the world sucks and we live in a fallen world. And all I can do is know that I get to see her again. And I remember I was crying about this. I don't remember what year it was, probably 2 or 3. And I was like, God, like, I didn't even get to see her open her eyes. Like, I didn't get to see anything. They handed me a purple child, like, wrapped up, and they drugged me. So I only remember bits and pieces of being able to hold her because, you know, I've always been loud and, you know, they didn't want to hear it. And I just remember God telling me, like, when you spend time in my presence, you get to experience everything that she experiences 24/7. And so I look at the fear and I'm like, okay, I can either, like, if I have this fear, first off, like, my baby can feel this fear. I have to choose faith. Because if I choose fear, I'm going to spiral. And I can't spiral. I just can't. Like, I know my mental health and I know that it's not good for me. And like, if I choose fear, I know what will happen. But if I choose faith, then I can just trust that it'll be okay and that God will take care of me. And I'm not, you know, the most knowledgeable person about the Bible. And I'm not, you know, I'm not perfect at all. But all I can do is just trust that everything's going to be okay this time around. And let me tell you, you guys, like, I feel like when this happened, the devil stole my child from me. I feel like it was the enemy. I feel like it was, you know, this doctor that had this God complex, you know, because she kept telling Matt, well, I think it's time for you to have a vasectomy. You have your Disneyland family, you know. But if Matt would have listened and would have been bullied by this like freaking demon, you know, we wouldn't have Pearl and we wouldn't have Nunzio. Like, we wouldn't have these children if we would have listened to the enemy. And I mean, come on, a life without Pearl? That kid's nuts. Like, in the best way, you know? And that's why she's Pearl. She's our pearl of great price, you know? I mean, sometimes when the fear comes, I just have to be like, not today, Satan. Not today. You've already stolen so much from me. I'm not going to give it to you. It ain't it. And I'm not doing it. And so in all of this, I share this because if you have, whether it's 6 weeks, whether it's like me, giving birth at 41 weeks to a perfect child that I never got to see grow up. Or, if it's a 1-month-old, a 2-month-old, a 1-day-old, whatever you have experienced, there are people around you who understand. I'm here for you. I know what it's like to have like the before the loss and then live after the loss. And I know what it's like to, go into a restaurant and hear a crying baby. My first shift that I worked back at the restaurant, there was a newborn baby girl at my table. And I had to, go turn in their order, bring them their salads, go cry in the bathroom, come back out, keep taking their order. I've lived it. And if anybody could, oh, hi. If anybody could empathize with you, and if anyone could understand, it's me. And I want to leave you with one of my favorite quotes, and it's actually by Zig Ziglar. And I found this quote in Griefshare. And Griefshare is a free resource for people who are grieving. And you can go to griefshare.com. And I've actually led 2.5. I'm going to say 1.5 because on that last one, the grief hit me again. I wasn't the greatest, and Cheryl took over my leading. But because it's normal, you go through, it's like up and down, and it's a roller coaster. It's not just go, But Griefshare helped me a lot. And it was an incredible free resource that is all over the country, and it is okay to go. And it is for you, and it helped put so much grief into perspective. And you know what? I found forever friends at Griefshare. Oh, and then the light died. It's all in time. Anyways, my favorite quote is by Zig Ziglar, and it is, where there is great grief, there was once great love. So, if I could say anything to my daughter today, I would say to her that I don't regret one moment of her life, and that even though she spent all of her time alive inside of me, I feel so blessed and so honored to be her mom. And I feel so grateful that God chose me to share her story. And, I would have never have gotten rid of her, ever. And her legacy lives on in her sisters, and just in my life, because my life changed because of her. And that's when I really decided to pursue God and his calling for my life. And, Daddy and I wouldn't be married, and you wouldn't have Pearl, and we wouldn't have now Nunzio, if it wasn't for the loss of her. And, look down on me, and one day I'm going to be able to see her again. And I get to spend eternity being mommy. So, anyways, thanks for listening. I love you. And if you're a grieving mom, especially, I'm always here for whoever. But if you're a grieving mom, parent, grandmother, sibling, I'm here. I empathize with you. If you want to share your story with me, I would be more than happy to pray for you and love on you. Like, subscribe on all of our platforms, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. And, you know, if you feel led, leave me a nice, happy review. And thank you for, you know, just reminiscing and holding space with me as I process 10 years of being a bereaved mom. So, I love you. Dante Bacci.